This is Dr. Lee with MBC 101, Unit 4 lecture. In this lecture, we will cover the skin, the integumentary system. The objectives for this presentation will be to identify organs, structures of the integumentary system, define and spell the word parts, build and analyze medical terms using word parts, define, pronounce, and spell the disease and disorders, diagnostic, surgical, and complementary terms for the integumentary system, interpret the meanings of the abbreviations, and read medical documents and interpret medical terminology contained in them. So the integumentary system has a very important function. The integumentary system comprises the skin, the nails, and the glands. The skin forms a protective covering that, when unbroken, prevents entry of bacteria and other invading organisms. The skin also protects the body from water loss and from damaging effects of the ultraviolet light. Other functions include regulation of body temperature and synthesis of vitamin D. So here is a very good graphic of the skin. So in it, you'll see the, starting from the bottom up, you have the sensory nerve, the adipose tissue, which is fat tissue. You see how it's supported by capillaries and arteries. And you have your hypodermis, your dermis, and your epidermis. Your hypodermis is further down towards the fat, and the dermis is the big, kind of muscle area of the skin, and then you have the epidermis, which is the very top layer. You have your sweat pores or your glands, and then you also have your hair shaft and your hair follicles. Okay. Major structures of the skin include the epidermis, which again is the outer layer of the skin, the keratin, which is the horny or cornified layer composed of protein. You have the melanin, which is the color or pigmentation of the skin. The dermis is the inner layer of the skin. That's the major part of the skin. Then you have the subdiferous glands. Those are tiny, coiled, or tubular structures that emerge through pores on the skin surface. You have the sebaceous glands, which secrete sebum or oil into the hair follicles, and that is where the hair shaft passes through the dermis. So here are some common disorders of the skin. So on the left, you have tinea, which is another word for ringworm. And on the right, you have dermatitis, which is simply inflammation of the derma or the dermis of the skin. And it can often cause a lot of itchiness and redness, or maybe even a rash. And here you have various types of cancers of the skin. So you have basal cell carcinoma. Anytime you hear carcinoma, you know that that is an epithelial type of cancer or growth. And then you have melanoma, which is really one of the most serious types of skin cancer. And it's cancer that affects the melanin. Remember, the pigmentation part of the skin. Lastly, here we have burn keloid. And a keloid is basically a scar that after it heals, it continues to form continues to produce this cellulose type of material, okay? And it just continues to grow. So some keloids get very big. They're not contagious. They're not particularly, they don't spread from person to person, but they do itch a lot to the person that has it, and can be painful depending on the location. And that concludes this presentation.